So this is gonna be, it's not really a pick. I mean, I should make this a pick, but, maybe it'll be a pick separately, but I shared this with Josh last week when he was on the show. Um, my kids have found this book, and actually this would be great for your son if you're interested. It is adolescent boy humor, but we've had so much fun with it. So there is a book on well, Isaac has on the Kindle. You can get the paperback version. It's called Would You Rather Ew, EWWW edition, and it has like all these like random would you rather questions. And
Uh-huh.
we have had so much fun as a family in the car discussing these things. It's like, would you
Nice.
rather be in a bathtub filled with live worms or walk on a carpet made of cockroaches?
Yes, that sounds like, little boy humor for
Yeah,
sure.
it's
Yeah.
been we've had so much fun though talking about them. So, and there's another one that's like, would you rather have a what was it? There was a this is another favorite one. Would you have deodorant that bites you every time you put it on? Or would you rather somebody complain about how or like the toilet paper complain about how stinky you are every time you go to the bathroom? Just
Man,
stuff like that.
yeah. And, you bringing up, like, suggestions for things to do with kids is making me think about that Making Fun show that you
Oh,
suggested, and
yeah.
I still haven't watched it with the
It's so
kids, and
good.
we really need to.
Yeah, my kids even turned it back on the other day because just to watch reruns. They love it so much. Yeah.
Did y'all go see the Minecraft movie yet?
Henry took the kids. I was working on
Mhm.
our taxes, so I did not see it. Let me tweet about this, also while we're settled.
Speaking about working on taxes, I got my
Mhm.
desk featured on Syntax FM in one of
Yes.
their, roast the
Yes.
desk setups. All of my tax stuff was sitting on my desk when I took the picture
Oh, no.
because Wes Boss was like, "Take a picture right now. Stand up and take a picture right now." So I was like, "Yes, sir." Stood up, snapped a picture, put it on
When
Twitter.
Wes tells you to do something.
You do it. And yeah, and I didn't realize that until the video came out and they called it out and I was like, "Oh god." No, I took everything down, but yeah, they said in the video too, "Somebody should really DM Brad and tell him about this." Nobody DM'd me. Come on, people.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, your tech so, I have to do all of my I have an LLC, so I have to do
Yeah.
all of my bookkeeping for the year, and then I hand everything off to Henry, and he handles everything else, and I am so terrible because I put it off all year and then I have to do like a year's worth of catch up. So every year I'm like, starting in April, I'm just going to get caught up and then just do a little bit every week. And then it never happens.
Like, what would that look like if you're doing bits at a time?
So it would just be, well, I have several things in my process, which is probably overkill, but I copy all of my transactions from my bank statements to an Airtable where I categorize everything. So I can tell you
Mm,
exactly what the categories are. And then, so that's like an extra step. That's not that hard. I mean, it's just tedious. And
that's
then
just the
I also,
bookkeeping piece.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I keep it and I just feel like Airtable is easy to work with. And I do the first year I did it, Airtable is like, it's free, but then I've have so many rows in my
Mhm.
databases now, and I have created a new one for each year that I do have to pay $12 a month for it. Um, that's really the only thing that I use Airtable for. But their pivot tables are great, and they'll even create charts out of your data and things like that. So in my mind, it's like a step above Google Sheets than if I
Yeah,
were to try and figure that out. And then I put all of my receipts into QuickBooks. So I reconcile all of my bank statements. So it's like I'm entering expenses in twice.
yeah.
And the QuickBooks piece is just really tedious. And QuickBooks does have like budgeting features, but if you just use like the main pieces, most of my expenses are just going to go in a generic term called supplies. And so with Airtable, I'm breaking things down a little bit more to say like, oh yeah, the stuff that I pay Namecheap and Hover and Pork Bun and Cloudflare, those are all domains. So then I get an idea of, oh goodness, this is how much I'm paying in domains every year. Anyways, it's a little bit more broken down through
Yeah.
Airtable. So,
I think next year will be my LLC year. I saw enough tax advantage,
mm,
this year,
yeah.
even from just buying, like, a computer and stuff like that and just
Mhm.
random random office supplies where I'm like, all of this could have been just like tax write-offs.
Yep, yep. Yeah, so I've had mine since 2010. Um, I do have to pay I think you said in Texas it's free.
In Texas, it's only
It's
one time, and you have to do yearly,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, so I did pay a lawyer like $1,000 up front to file, and that also I think I'm
Mhm.
sure included the lawyer's time. You can file by yourself, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I just would rather pay somebody to do it. Henry could probably do that stuff. He's really good at that. But I did that in 2010, and then I've paid I think $300 every year after that, just to as a renewal fee. You just log
Yeah,
in every year and say, "Yep, all this information is the same. Take my money."
sweet.
Yep.
Man, talking about all the finance stuff, I'm very thankful for my
Mhm.
financial
Yes.
advisors and, my investment people right now because as the stock market is dropping, my investment account is not dropping as much.
Oh,
So I'm like,
nice.
yeah,
This is
they're like
why.
doing a
This is
great
why.
job like protecting. So I
Uh-huh.
actually
Did you get an
appreciate that.
email? Did you get an email
And
from them?
no, I'm tracking this every month in my own
Okay.
spreadsheet. So in my
Got
own
it, got it, got
spreadsheet,
it.
I'm comparing their
Uh-huh.
performance against the market, and then I can
Got
kind
it.
of
Sweet.
make bigger decisions. And up until now, they were very slightly underperforming the market.
Uh-huh.
But I think that's the thing. It's like, it's going to follow the exact market trends just a little bit under. And then
Yeah.
as soon as the market dips, now it's in first place. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
nice.
like getting my money's
This
worth.
is why. Well,
Yeah,
I guess I can say that online. So I think we were using the same person, Lori, and she got promoted, I think. So we
I did get that
switched
email.
people, which I was like, no, because I loved her. But I mean, good for her that she got promoted. So the new girl, she emailed us, and it was just kind of like this talk you down off the ledge. It's gonna be
Oh,
okay. We
yes, that
prepare for
email.
times like
Yes.
this. Yeah.
Well, and I had met with her a couple times already because I had a
Oh,
tax
the new girl?
question. Yeah, and I
Okay.
had a tax question and it was sent over to her, and then I had my quarterly meeting with her, and,
Okay.
it's all good, so
Oh, awesome,
I'm not
awesome.
worried.
Now, here's the thing, you need to come up here and meet with them in person so that I get to see you.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, because we get to go because 'cause they're right down the street. Well, not just right down the street, but they are down the street, so we get to go have our meetings in person.
Yeah. Well, cool,
Cool.
let's kick it off today.
Okay, I'll do it. Let me ch It's so good to be back in a normal
Yeah, hosts onlys
I
happen kind
know,
of few and far between, and it is nice. How do I
I love
sound, by the
them.
way? Because I
You sound
changed
great.
some things. Okay,
You
good.
sound great. Yep.
I have no
Let's see.
monitoring right now. We'll talk about that in picks and plugs, I suppose, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm still jealous. Okay, I'll do it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. In today's episode, we have some water cooler talk. We're going to talk about frameworks. We're going to talk about the interviewing process. We're going to talk about Leak Code and some really cool services coming out of Cloudflare.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compress.
What's up, everybody? My name is Amy Dutton. I am a Redwood JS core team member.
Hey, y'all, my name is Brad Garapi, and I'm a senior front-end developer at Stripe.
And I just realized usually I say I'm a lead developer on the Redwood JS core team. Just left that part out. It's all
I
right.
feel like it's been a bit. I was out of practice with the intro thing, and I had to, go over it a couple times.
Well, I've done some development lately, but I've mostly been doing more marketing type work. So whether that's creating videos or right now I'm working on this crazy, probably too long tutorial trying to explain some of the new stuff that we're doing with Redwood. But it's
Sweet.
been fun to build that out and try and find ways to make it easy to explain to other people. And I know we've talked about before on the show that you really solidify what you know when you have to start teaching it to somebody else.
Yeah. As you're explaining this, are you going under the hood and talking about how things are built, or are you just completely saying, "Hey, from a user perspective, this is all you should care about, and this is how we make it easy"?
Yeah, I'm just approaching it from a user perspective and some of the things that we provide. There's other parts of the documentation that go a little bit deeper in terms of the reasoning behind why we did what we did and how some of that stuff is set up. What's interesting, do we want to jump in to this part?
Let's
Okay.
go.
So what's interesting about the Redwood SDK, so for anybody that this is news to them, we announced recently that we are the I guess the Redwood that everybody knows is the GraphQL version, and we are referring that to as Redwood GraphQL. We now have the Redwood SDK that is all built on top of Cloudflare services. So if you are wanting to work with Cloudflare, it is really probably the easiest way, the easiest route, if you want to use React to work with Cloudflare. And so what's interesting is when they've developed this, they've tried to put as much strip as much magic away as possible. That's kind of the term that we're using. But all that really means is that with Redwood GraphQL, a lot of times we had stuff locked into scripts. So if you wanted to configure anything, sometimes it was difficult to figure out where is this configuration happening, or like if I'm going to modify it, what configuration am I overriding? And it was hard to find that. So it felt like magic in the sense that it's just happening and I don't know what's happening. So we've tried to raise all of that up so that it's very obvious what is happening underneath the hood. So for example, the Redwood SDK is really just React and Vite. That's it. I mean, I say that's it.
Dude,
oh, you made a face.
I made a face because it's so good. Cloudflare just announced at their
Mm-hmm.
developer week this Vite plugin that essentially, you used to have to run Wrangler and all this stuff to
Mhm.
kind of get your app running in Workerd in the
Yeah.
Cloudflare
Yep.
runtime. No, not anymore. It's a Vite plugin. You put it right there in your Vite config, and boom, npm run dev is now the Workerd, Wrangler environment.
Uh-huh.
And so like that's going to make local dev even better, even closer to what it's like
Yeah.
running on Cloudflare.
Yes.
Are you guys taking advantage of that as well now?
To be honest, I really don't know all the things. I know that we've been working with the Cloudflare team and helping
Mhm.
them and reporting bugs or giving them feedback on the DX. So I'm sure that they're very aware of whatever pieces there are. I know from a deployment perspective, that's one of the things that I think our team is most excited about is it's just like you run a single command, PMPM release, and everything works because what you're talking about, your local environment matches your production environment.
Yeah. And I also okay, I've been building some stuff on Cloudflare lately, kind of trying to really understand everything they offer. And
Mhm.
I think
It's
my favorite thing
incredible.
about it is you can spin up resources so fast. Like to
Mhm.
just, you go try to make a Postgres database and you got to figure out where to host it and deploy it and
Mhm.
initialize it.
Mhm.
And that could be like a 15-minute process.
Yep.
Like Wrangler D1 new whatever, I can't remember the exact command.
Mhm.
It's up and running in like a half a second.
Yep.
And you can do that for databases, key value stores, serverless functions, anything.
Durable
And then you get
objects.
durable. I finally understand what durable objects are, really cool. That took a while. But yeah, we're at a point where spinning up your infrastructure on Cloudflare very specifically is the fastest it's ever been.
Mhm.
And your local development matches so close to the deployed environment that I feel like now you do kind of have this superpower where you're just building, 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 and it's going to work. And
Mhm.
you don't have to worry about hosting stuff because it's immediately connected.
Yep.
But on the flip side, I also think that it's kind of the one drawback is because Cloudflare operates on this context model where
Mhm.
they inject these bindings into your context. It kind of feels like you can't share that across your app really well. You know what I mean? I always have a layer between my,
Mm.
let's say, API request handler and my database access. I have helper functions
Oh,
to do things.
yep, yep, yep.
So how do you get that context from the API handler into the database layer besides kind of prop drilling it in? There's no
Mhm.
global way to be import context from Cloudflare. You have to prop drill it through.
Oh, interesting. So, I'm thinking about this because I'm I know how this works in the context of Redwood SDK,
Yeah.
and I think some of that's resolved.
Really?
Um, I want you to look at look at what we've done, do a deep dive. Maybe that would be a great live stream where we build
Yes.
something together and I just show you. Because there is when I'm working with the database, I do have everything in a helper function, but I can have this context piece that almost runs like middleware that sets up the database for me. But you can also just grab it throughout your app. So maybe I'm missing something.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but it's pretty cool. So I would say if we haven't officially announced it yet, but you can go see what we've built and what we're working on. So it's rwsdk.com is the SDK piece. Redwood.js still exists. If you go there, there's kind of like a letter explaining some of the decisions that we're making right now. If you do have a Redwood app using GraphQL, that's still supported, but it's becoming more of a community project. But I also know that we're exploring options so that you could maybe use the GraphQL piece as an endpoint with the Redwood SDK. So if you're trying to create things like mobile applications or things like that that need that GraphQL piece to it, you can have both sides of this framework working, which is interesting. But yeah, I've been super impressed with Cloudflare's services. And I think that really does help with the decision fatigue because okay, I'm just going to use Cloudflare for all these things. And they really do offer so much out of the box.
Yeah. Man, I also have been working with GraphQL again. You mentioned GraphQL, and I built a little application where I had the choice to use REST or GraphQL. And I found that had I chosen the REST API route, I would have been making multiple API calls to like stitch together information. First you get the users and then you get their things and then you have to get the
Yep.
other things. Then you have to mash it together. And I was like, man, I guess I'm going GraphQL because this is going to save some network requests. And for the most part, that was a great decision because you could
Yeah.
just build your response tree. The only downside was the API server didn't support introspection, so I couldn't generate types on the client side, which stunk.
Oh.
It was like kind
Uh-huh.
of just winging it there.
Yeah.
And then the second problem was it wasn't exposing things like total count. So it was paginating the responses, but they're like, look,
Yeah.
here's page 2 and there's 20 people on this page, but we're not going to tell you how many total there are. So
Mhm.
sometimes that helps with like UI where you want to kind of show like the total number of search results, but you're only
Yep.
on page 2.
Right.
And so I had to like make another call to kind of figure that out.
Were you were you given your tech stack? Like, did you have to use Next?
Yeah, that was actually
Okay.
my first experience building with Next 15.
Interesting. Because I was
Yeah.
gonna say, with Redwood, the GraphQL version, I have stitched together REST APIs into the backend and gotten everything to work, even like stitching it in with our database, which is pretty cool that you can do all that. And then if you're missing things like count all, it just becomes a function on the server that then you can easily return through your GraphQL. So if it is missing something, it's not too difficult to add that in.
Nice. Yeah, I think there was like a thing called connections where you have nodes and edges and they can count the number of edges and that's how you
Uh-huh.
I mean that's like I guess the blessed way to do
Sure.
things like total count.
Interesting. Yeah, because so the other side of it was we were using Prisma on the server. And
Mhm.
so you can use it's like returning it's returning GraphQL, but like Prisma is still generating all your types. So you have access to that. And then it kind of takes care of that N+1 issue. You still have
Yeah.
to watch out for it, but it takes care of a lot of the frustrating things about GraphQL.
That's one thing I haven't done is taken something like Prisma or Drizzle and integrated it with like Cloudflare D1.
Mm,
Um,
I have.
that's necessary. You have, yeah?
Yeah, so with Redwood SDK, we are using Prisma, but you're not tied to Prisma. We have it included in one of our starters, but you can use Drizzle. And so I did connect it with Drizzle and I've experimented with their API and I love it.
How
Which
like
I
how do
love
you do it? Do you
Prisma.
just Oh, you like the
So
Drizzle API, you're saying?
yeah, I love that. Well, I love both of them for different
Yeah.
reasons. I love the Prisma team. I love everything that they've done. Huge fan girl. But Drizzle's awesome too. So if you've ever worked with Supabase and their API, it feels a lot like Supabase, except it even gives you more than I feel like the Supabase API gives you. When you define your schema, it looks like TypeScript, like you're defining
Mhm.
objects. You do have, like when you're defining your types, that feels more like, hey, I'm passing in these kind of like functions, not really, but the only reason I say they're functions is because there's
Yeah.
parentheses. But then when you make your API calls, it does look a lot like Supabase. So yeah, huge fan. And I think the one maybe preference that I feel towards Drizzle compared to Prisma is sometimes when you're trying to create complicated queries with Prisma, you start drilling down and have these objects where it's like where colon and you have an object and then you feel like you're objects inside objects inside objects, which is fine. But with Drizzle, it's a little bit more functiony in terms of I'm just going to pass it a parameter for this function to get what I want. So you don't feel like you're creating it quite as many lines of code just because it's easy to put on a single line.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like to me, because I don't use the raw SQL thing,
Mhm.
in Drizzle, and I think even Prisma has it now too, but I've had more experience with Prisma. There's not enough difference for me to like really give Drizzle a go. I've
Mhm.
used it
Mhm.
on like a couple very small demos, and I've had, like issues getting started or whatnot. Like
Mhm.
one time I was trying to follow their getting started docs and there was a
Yeah.
bug and it actually like
Mm.
didn't work. And so it's like, okay, I'm just gonna push it to the side. Like
Yeah.
Prisma still solves my use case and there's no reason to switch.
Right. Now, speaking in terms of Cloudflare, Drizzle does offer Cloudflare support right out of the box for
Mm,
D1 and I think durable objects as well. So, yeah.
sweet. And that's something I need to wrap my head around, like how that works. Do they just connect to the D1 API, like your instance API as a database connection? Or is it somehow using like the context in your
Yeah, I don't know.
your worker? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I've found that there are 2 types of developers. I think we're each a different type. So there's one
Yes,
type of developer where you just love the magic and you're like, "I just love this. Give me all the functions, give me all the magic." And then there's the other kind that's like, "How does this work? Like, I really wanna know
I
what's
need to
happening
know.
under the hood."
Yeah,
So I think I'm the magic one.
I
You're
feel like
the
I'm cheating if I don't at least like have a general idea of how it
yeah.
works under the hood.
Yeah, and I even saw that at Zeal. We did an on-site hackathon one time, and you could tell that there was one type of developer where we were just like, "Yeah, we're just using functions left and right," and there's the other type, there's like they were gonna be probably faster in the long run, but they're like, "I've gotta break this down first."
Yeah, like getting started and like understanding your
Yeah.
stack and the system of things takes way longer,
Uh-huh.
and then like you can
You're
go
fast.
fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
For sure. But yeah, I'm excited about where things are headed. One thing get your take on this that we're kind of leaning into right now is the personal computing. And I don't know if this is just where like the team is coming from, but we are all products of the 80s. I feel like I grew up in the 90s, but was born in the
Yeah.
80s. And that was when, personal computing really became a thing. People started having computers in their home. Like I still remember magical moments when we got our first Windows 95 computer and it starts up and it plays that music and you're like, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing." And you plug in like Encarta, like a CD-ROM into the computer and you're like, I can see videos as part of like encyclopedia entries. It was just a very magical moment. And so a lot of our marketing has kind of those retro vibes where we're trying to like recapture that magical moment because I feel like we're on the cusp of kind of something similar. If you've used API or sorry, if you've used AI with Cursor or Lovable and or V0 and you ask the computer to do something, you're like, "Oh my goodness, this is my application." I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but it does still have those same moments of magic.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you when you're saying we're getting closer to like the magical moments because we always talked about comparing like JavaScript land to PHP land.
Mhm.
Like things like Laravel. Well, guess what? If everybody's starting to converge on Cloudflare, what that does is it standardizes kind of the one biggest problem that the JavaScript ecosystem had is like there were too many ways to store your data. That was the piece that
Mhm.
was missing, right? You could
Yeah.
automate the
Yeah.
heck out of the front end stuff, but the back end stuff was a big question mark. So if we know that SQLite and KV are always available to us, which kind of have these universal APIs at this point, you can now make assumptions about that backend,
Mhm.
which means you can generate code better, generate components better, generate these integrations better. And so when
Yeah.
you're spinning things up, your templates know what to expect. And
Yeah.
I think we're there. And that's why I think I'm excited about the next phase of Redwood, because when you're leaning into hosting, you can make those assumptions. And I
Yeah.
don't think anybody's going to have a controversial opinion on like, no, we should be able to host on AWS too. I mean, okay, maybe like the biggest of
There
big
are some
enterprises
people.
might want that, but for I think the vast majority of people, that's the right call.
Yeah, and there's been people too that have said like, "Oh, I don't wanna put all my eggs in one basket. I'd rather have everything use a different service,"
Yeah.
which, I mean, I understand I've had to pick and choose, but I also wonder how much of that is just from that's what we've been doing, so that's what I expect to do, because there is benefit when everything is all in one place. It really is beautiful. Um, so
And it
the
doesn't mean it's sitting on one server. I mean, right,
right,
all these are different worker environments or
right,
different, databases or whatnot. And so you're going to be fine. It's not like there's
yep,
not redundancy. It's not like Cloudflare doesn't have a
yes.
global network.
Right, right. The other thing that excites me is I can't tell you how many services I'd be embarrassed to tell you how many services I'm paying for where I'm not crazy about the company or the product, but it is the best option that's available. And or how much I'm paying for a certain service because I need it, but I feel like I'm overpaying. So when you
Hmm.
start talking about personal software, I can make that my own. And with AI, it's not that hard to like fire up an app, copycat app that does the same thing, but it does exactly what I need and maybe more because it is tailored to my use case. Like that's what gets me excited about being able to create my own apps.
Yeah. And I think like hosting open source versions of stuff on Cloudflare is
Mm,
is kind of that next generation of personal computing.
yeah,
It's like, well, I don't want to pay for whatever, some bit finance software.
sure.
Somebody made an open source version. I can just self-host on Cloudflare.
Yeah.
I think of Counterscale by Ben Vinegar all the
Mm,
time, where he just made this analytics thing based on some Cloudflare APIs, and he's like, "Yeah, you could just deploy it if you want to. It's all open source." And now Cloudflare even has a button, a deploy to Cloudflare button
oh, they
that you can
do.
put in your readmes,
Ah,
and it's like, I know the GitHub repo, I know the code base, like, boom, it's
that's
deployed on your
awesome.
infrastructure.
That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, the future is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I haven't like React server components and React 19 didn't get me excited. It kind of just pushed me away a little bit. And I
Mm,
went into my like, I'm just going to use Remix and I'm not going to give a crap about all this
yeah.
stuff. What's more exciting to me is the infrastructure and hosting options and how it's going to start enabling frameworks alongside of
Yeah.
Vite 6, essentially.
Sure. Now, let's talk about that. So you mentioned React server components. That is part of the Redwood SDK. You said you've been building a project in Next 15. What is your take now with React server components?
Um, it wasn't as complicated as I thought. Like, but I do think the mental model is still more mushy.
Mm,
Like, I still like the remix model better where it's just data that's happening
mhm.
on your server, and you're returning data,
Yeah,
JSON. Every time I look at a file, I'm like, "Okay, okay, hold on. Does this say use server or use client at the top?"
ah,
Like,
yep,
"Okay, now I'm framing what I'm doing." And 2 React components could look exactly the same, but, like, one has some data calls
uh-huh,
at the top of it, and then you have to be like, "Oh, this," now I'm, like, recontextualizing what I'm looking at, and
yeah,
so it's not as clear as I think something with a harder boundary
mm,
of server and client.
yeah,
Um, but as soon as I got that, I was like, cool, use client for the presentational
sure,
stuff, the things that need
yep,
state and effects, use server for like the top page level. But
yep,
what it does make you do, and I kind of don't like this. This is
yeah,
like a developer experience rough edge here, is that like you can start with a server component at your page level, which does some data fetching and stuff. But if you want to put client components in underneath, you have to make them a new file so
yeah,
that it can like figure out how to code split and bundle that
yep,
differently and run it on the server. And so it's just more like I feel like
yeah,
you're just going to have more files and more complexity. And I don't love that portion of it. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it was a small app. I had a couple, and it fell together pretty nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair piece of criticism because I have run into instances where I'm like, I really don't want this to be in a separate file, but because it's a client component, I really don't have a
Have
choice.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do love so with Redwood GraphQL, I loved being able to fetch my data right next to the component that's using
Yeah.
it, because then you can just drop that component anywhere and you automatically have your data. I think that was one of the things I wasn't crazy about with Remix. I feel like I was prop drilling all of that stuff in and having to either abstract that into a separate function that gets called in or create basically the same database call in multiple places. So I do love that with RSC, you can have those calls directly within the component. It feels a little bit cleaner. And at least because we were using GraphQL, the easiest way I think to consume GraphQL on the front end is with Apollo client. And so you ended up having just it felt like a chunky file because you'd have the query
Yeah.
call, then you'd have like Apollo's using that within a hook, and then you're like setting up the function, and then you actually call it. So you're setting that up in 3 places. Whereas if I'm say using, I mean, Prisma, Drizzle, or like I mentioned Supabase earlier, you can do all that kind of in line, and it's just right there. So yeah.
Yeah. The trade-offs are like one big chunky file, but it's self-contained, right?
Mhm.
And then you can pass it around.
Yeah.
And it's very unit testable. But
Yeah.
testing that thing gets more difficult because there's so much inside of it.
Yeah. Now, where do you draw the line between like, oh, this is all self-contained, but then it almost becomes too large to maintain? Because I know that's been a problem that you've encountered recently where you're like, I have thousands and thousands of lines of code and it's just hard to parse. It's like,
Yeah,
where do you differentiate and draw the line?
I try to separate things out a lot. Like
Yeah.
I'm not super pedantic about it, but I do believe in like presentational components
Mm.
because if I'm seeing a component that's like a crap ton of logic, man, put that in a hook or a function
Yeah.
or do something so
Mhm.
that I can either mock that out while I'm testing or just remove it from the RAM in my brain as I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
like what UI that I'm seeing in the browser does this correspond to?
Mhm.
So and I'm not super pedantic about it. Like everything can have a little logic in it, but when it gets really complicated, it should be split out and it, not only for testing purposes, but also for understanding purposes.
Sure. Where did you draw the line with um uh sorry, message is distracting. Where do you draw the line with so with Next 15, one question that I've maybe struggled with is where to put my server code, because you could put the server code inside the component. You could abstract that out and put it, say, in an actions file that lives right alongside that particular page. Or you can abstract that out again and say, like, have a library of code where you're just pulling from. So sometimes I had trouble being like, where should this live?
Yeah, I view this kind of the same way in Remix, like in what you do in your loaders and your
Hmm.
actions. Your loaders and your actions are pretty much your controller. The only job is to receive the request, pull anything out of it you need, and then you pass it into your data layer, the thing that just accepts regular arguments or objects and interacts with your database or does what it needs to do. I kind of view actions like that too. I used an actions file and I would make helper functions in there that was like to do serverful stuff. And it helped me contextualize that when I'm looking at an actions file, I know that it's running on the server. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I need to like not make any mistakes because I think that's what's going to happen. You're good, like
Yeah.
this is going to lead to some mistakes, and I think
Hmm.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Have you, as you're using more server side code, do you look to things like Playwright that feel more of like end to end testing? Or are you still doing just as much unit testing?
Um, Both.
Hmm.
So, I mean, with mock service worker, you can just eliminate the API layer very, I think, very easily and effectively. But yeah, like as more things have moved towards the server, Playwright and testing gets more important.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
For sure.
I test my I used to go as far as testing all of my loaders and actions individually, meaning I would
Mm,
create a request and then just you can run the loader with a request object. Um, and and that was pretty cool. But Remix also has like a test helper where you can set up kind of like the whole world and then say like run this entire Remix component and it will handle all of it.
mhm. Interesting.
That one didn't pick up a ton of steam. I feel like a lot
Okay.
of devs still don't use it. It was a little clunky. You have to
Okay.
it's kind of like a mock for like everything that could happen in the
Yeah.
Remix route.
Yeah. Now, were you just at the Remix uh meetup?
I was at the Remix meetup a little bit ago, and then I was
Okay.
at the Austin JS meetup at
Oh,
Cloudflare
got
last
it.
night.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So my other question, I know you probably have a closer pulse on what's happening within the Remix community. And my goal has been creating these primitives for the web, just trying to make it easier to access certain APIs. What are
Yeah,
some of those? Do you know what some of those primitives are? Like what pieces is he trying to make
it's
better?
it's like above my pay grade stuff as like a user. It's very fundamental, like streams and this stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Oh,
Like
that
it's
level.
not jumping out to me as like immediately useful. Like, oh, I can't wait till this is done and I can use these
Mhm.
features on the back end. I think they're small building blocks because they're going to do something more, and I don't really know what
Mhm.
that is. But also, I don't know. Some of them I don't even understand. It's like it seems like you're reinventing the wheel for some reason, but maybe
Yeah,
there's hooks in there that frameworks can, utilize, and maybe that's
sure.
what he's trying to build.
Sure. Yeah,
But
I've always felt like
that repo is going to be the next thing. I think
mm,
it's called M Jackson Remix the Web.
yeah, of course. What a great name.
Yes, it is.
I
Let
feel
me throw it in the
like
chat.
I mean, I know I said there's 2 different types of developers, the ones that have magic and the ones that accept things, but I also feel like there's another set of 2 developers where it's like one that is writing framework code and the foundational pieces that then everybody else builds on top of. And to me,
Yeah,
some of the questions that they're answering on the framework level is mind blowing. Like I don't under as you said, it's above my pay grade.
yeah. Yeah, okay, ready? Here we go. Here's the list of packages that
Okay.
he's publishing. Fetch proxy. Build
Oh, that is
HTTP
next level if
HTTP
it's
proxies using fetch.
fetch.
File storage, a key value storage
Huh.
for JavaScript capital F file objects. Form data parser. It's request.form data wrapper, but with streaming file upload handling. Headers,
Mm.
a toolkit for working with headers. I mean, I cool. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
yes, some of the form data stuff can be annoying. Some of the header stuff can be annoying, but like, this isn't jumping out to me just yet as a full solution. These are the pieces.
You might not have the answer to this particular question. That's totally fine. I feel like Remix has really leaned into the web APIs. We're going to embrace the browser. It's been around for like 50 years. Use it. Is this a departure, do you feel like, from that if they're creating these other primitives that are then changing like fetch or changing form data?
I, I don't think so because, I
Okay.
mean, they're saying that this is a form data wrapper, meaning they're not just turning everything into JSON and using JSON. It sounds like they're still leveraging form data. They're just giving helpers on the other end. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know. Um,
Interesting.
but it seems
Or
like everybody is still leaning into web APIs. I
yeah.
mean, even look at Cloudflare's workers, like it is a request response model, right? So,
Mhm. Yep. Yep. I mean, even the new stuff with React 19 feels more web API-ish with the actions
yes,
method and
yes.
using all that. Cool, cool, cool.
Well, let's see. Let's pivot a little bit and talk
Uh-huh.
about interviews. I've been doing a bunch of interviews lately,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of them have been leak code style, and I've been trying to prepare for that really well.
Uh-huh.
I want to go in like knowing what I'm talking about, feeling confident. And it's like almost like flipping the switch in your brain to go into that mode.
Mhm.
And here's what I've learned. Everything is a for loop. A regular for loop, not a for each, not a map,
Mm,
not a reduce. Everything is a for loop. Just because it gives you so much control over the bounds of things. You can break, you can continue, you can
mm,
return right out of a for loop. Use for loops, number one. Number two, leverage maps and sets. Because if you do everything in an
mhm.
array, it's going to take you O of n time to iterate through the whole thing and find what you're looking for,
Yep.
right? So use maps, use sets. The big downside there, though, even though they have like, constant time lookups and stuff, um, it sucks to iterate over them. Like you have to array dot from a map if you want to, let's say, sort it by keys or something, or use the iterators, which I find kind of clunky. But for the most part, all of these questions boil down to that: a for loop, maybe a temporary variable or two, and possibly storing like a set of data in a partial set of data in a set or a map, and then just like kind of returning that at the end of it.
Mhm.
So once you get in that mode, they all seem to be fairly straightforward.
Okay. I've not ventured down that road.
I think it's worth it. And
Uh-huh.
I've also been practicing a lot of like core React stuff where it's like do everything on the client,
Mhm.
like controlled inputs, use
Mm.
effects, on
Mhm.
change handlers, event.prevent default on submit, stuff like
Yep.
that. Stuff that I've actively tried to take out of my brain because we've all moved back towards the server and we're using form data and things like
Yeah.
that. And so I'm like, oh, right. Just everything is just a big thing in state and you just react off of it.
So the companies that you're interviewing for, do they have you do leak code as well as, like, take home assignments? Or is it like a
S-
either or situation?
The way I find it most commonly is like the first technical assessment is like a sit down and just solve some kind of a problem in pure JavaScript. And this is your kind of leak codey ones. Like
Mhm.
some companies will give you like a straight up like academic style leak code question. Other companies are better at saying like, hey, look, here's like kind of a real problem, but stripped down, solve this. And
Mhm.
it's just, write a little code to like modify some data or something. Then that's the first screen. They determine if you're like, can you actually program? And then they
Yeah.
go into like the full interview loop where it's like the typical loop now is like build some kind of an app or component, do like a system design type thing where you talk about how apps interact with backends and data
Mhm.
storage, and then some kind of like behavioral or leadership thing like that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And most of the positions that you're interviewing for are like senior front end, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I still like a lot of the backend stuff is just not in TypeScript.
Mhm.
You'd have to learn Ruby, PHP,
Yeah.
Go, and I'm just like not quite there yet. I'd be
Mhm.
interested in learning Go, but honestly, PHP too. But I feel like, if you're looking to join a big company and they're writing PHP on the back end, it's not going to be the modern Laravel stuff that
Yeah.
we've been digging into. It's going to be old stuff.
Yeah. Well, I would say from my experience, the PHP that I've written is closer to JavaScript because it is a bracketed language. It looks
Yeah.
very familiar in terms of parentheses and curly brackets. Uh, Ruby was a little bit harder for me to wrap my head around. They say it's very readable in the sense like you're reading it like a sentence, but it doesn't have brackets. And so that was a little confusing to me that there were certain things that felt like
Yeah.
backwards just in the way that I've trained my brain to think about things.
I've heard Go is actually very easy to pick up for
Mhm.
JavaScript developers.
Okay, cool. And then I guess there's Elixir and Phoenix too, if you
Yeah.
want to go down
Yeah.
that. Interesting. The other thing that I found is that a lot of the backend languages continue to use class-based components, which I feel like I haven't written a lot of class-based stuff recently because JavaScript has moved so much to functional programming.
Yeah. Actually, that's one thing that'll rock your world if you're doing like one of those you know, problem solving challenges and you're like implementing a class and you're like,
Mhm.
or they'll ask, make a class to do this. And it's like, oh God. And so now I've done a little bit more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even in the Svelte community, I feel like they've started to lean more into classes now with the Svelte 5 stuff.
Yeah.
So I've seen more of that recently too.
Yeah.
Cool.
At the end of the day, I think it's just a switch you have to turn on in your brain to start thinking like that. And once you do, you like have this toolkit of things you know you need to use, which ones apply here. Okay. And you
Mhm.
just start down that path.
Yeah. Yep. Have you had to do a lot of algorithms?
Only one like pure algorithm. It was like a tree
Okay.
type structure for auto completion, but like
Okay.
it wasn't that bad. They already had the class set up, and it was up to you to
Okay.
figure out how to do the insert and how to do a search.
Okay.
And it wasn't like you were modifying the whole tree. It was just
Mhm.
objects with children. So you're just kind of iterating through the children, like picking
Okay.
the one that had the right key. Yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't that bad.
Like, I just remember in college having to do, like, all these bubble sorts and stuff like that.
Mm,
No. I don't remember how to do any of that now.
yeah. Yeah, that I would probably look at an interview and be like, yeah,
Nice
I
knowing
I
you. Thanks
I
thanks
can't.
for the
I
time.
don't know what you want me to say. Like, I haven't memorized that. Sorry.
Mhm. Yeah, I know, for real, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've even wondered, so we have another friend, Brad and I have a mutual friend that was interviewing somewhere and was talking about some of the interview questions that they had and just pressing for examples, and he was having to pull back from, like, 5 or 10 years worth of experience. And it's one of those things that I've wondered, like, could how would that be received if I was like, "I haven't encountered that?" Like, is that always a bad thing if you haven't encountered a major screw up that then you can talk about? Are you penalized for not having a major screw up? You just
So I read this one article about an interviewer who said, "I keep poking until a developer tells me I don't know.
mm,
I have to find the bounds of their knowledge," right? And that's why
interesting.
it's important not to lie, right? Too. Like,
Yeah.
you need to be honest. And the interview was saying, even if it's way past my ability, I just go into like curious mode and just keep
Mm,
digging. It's like, oh, well, how does that work? Or what did you think about this? And
uh-huh.
it's like, it's just important to find out, yeah, the edges of somebody's knowledge and for them
Mhm.
to be able to admit, like, I don't know, I've never encountered that. So I
Mhm.
think it's a healthy thing to say. And
Yeah.
in this case, some interviewers are actively looking for it.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you wanna move into the next section, or do you have
Heck yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So the next section of the show is our picks and plugs section where we pick something that we like and we plug something generally that we've worked on. So Brad, it sounds like you have a pick and a plug.
It sounds like I have
It's, I didn't
a
even plan
pick.
that.
Um, yeah, I've been utilizing my benefits to the fullest lately,
Yeah.
and I had some like office budget left over, and it was just enough to pick up a pair of these AirPods Maxes. And I was
Yeah.
skeptical at first, but my Sonys were starting to like the ear things were just like deteriorating, and I've had them on some airplanes lately, and I was realizing that the noise canceling wasn't as good as I thought it was. Like my AirPods were doing almost better,
Mm,
and so I was like, "Okay, let's try these over-ear AirPods Max." Uh, like, much better sound and much better noise
mm.
canceling, much better. And then you just get all the beautiful, like, Apple integrations. Like, I can walk across the house, and it'll just connect to every device as I walk around.
Nice.
It's pretty good. Um, the downside, or the adjustment rather, was that they are heavier. Um,
Mm,
I feel like the Sonys stuck out more this way, but these are taller.
mhm,
And they are a little bit heavier, but I wear them for 8 hours a day, and it's fine. Like, like, it was an adjustment, but there's no fatigue to it.
sure.
So, overall, really, really happy with them, and it changed my audio setup, so I can move around. I don't have a cord connected to me. It feels so much cleaner on the desk, and I like it.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
But
I guess they still get
hefty
the
paycheck.
spatial sound. Sometimes I like that,
Yes.
sometimes I don't.
Sometimes it can be weird, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, cool. So, but you would recommend those over the inner ear?
Over the, like,
Yeah.
AirPods?
Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely better noise canceling than the AirPods.
Wow.
But you can just tell it's like the same algorithm powering it. You know what I mean? The same chip,
Mhm.
and so you can kind of feel the same adjustments that it makes. But I just think because these are over ear, there's just so much better isolation.
Sure. What about, I guess they have transparency mode. How do
Yep.
you
Yeah.
feel
I,
about that?
I just click a little button, transparency mode kicks on. It's all
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Uh, they are still a little awkward in a sense of like they have a really terrible case. Like the case is the
Oh,
worst.
yeah.
But these are really just to sit on my desk because I like in that little dinky case. I don't feel comfortable like putting them in a backpack, especially because the top is like mesh. I don't
Right.
want that to get ripped or anything.
Right.
And the way they rotate kind of sucks. They
Uh-huh.
only rotate one way. So when you take them off and you
Oh.
rotate them to set them down, or even if you set it like let's say on you take them off and you hang them around your neck,
Uh-huh.
the earpieces only rotate to go outward. So like the
Oh.
sound, let's say if you're listening to something, even though it will
Uh-huh.
pause, they're facing outward. I would have much rather had it like rotate in so
Yeah.
you would see the back. So they only go one way, and so that's kind of
Interesting.
weird.
Okay.
And I don't really have battery life comments. Like they get me through a day. I don't even look at it. I'm not sure, what it is.
That's amazing.
82% right now.
My
I run
AirPods
them.
can't do that. I'll be in a
They
meeting and
can't
they'll
make it
go
through a
out.
day.
No. But then
Wow.
I probably have this, I don't know what generation. I have Pros, but I'm not sure if it's like the first or the second generation. It's one of the earlier
Hmm.
ones. But it can probably only go maybe 2 hours.
Wow.
Maybe. So,
Well,
yeah.
the case charging in those is really fast, though.
Mhm. Yeah. So, one of the hacks that I have is if one starts to go out in a meeting, I'll take the other side out and charge it, and then when it goes out, then I switch them.
You're just one ear
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah.
Isn't
Oh,
that a setting you
personally,
have to enable though? If you have one out to still like play
oh,
music and stuff?
maybe, I don't know, because if it seems not to have any trouble if I just put it right back in the case. If I'm holding one, it will definitely pause.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that's my pick. I don't know what my plug is. I don't know. bradgarrity.com
It's like
slash resume. How
I
about
was
that?
gonna say, you've been streaming and you also, have Cloudinary videos you've been working on.
Yes. Oh man, I got like 3 Cloudinary videos this week.
That's awesome.
Go to Cloudinary videos, their Dev Hints channel. Let me link that up. Okay, there's got to be a playlist somewhere. There we go. Cloudinary Dev Hints.
Sweet.
Yeah, been doing a ton of videos for them lately. Been good. Cloudinary can handle PDFs as well as images.
That's
I don't know if you
cool.
know that. And you can still transform them like they're images, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll look into that.
All right. What do you got?
So for my plug, my laptop has a 2 terabyte hard drive on it, but I've been making a lot of videos lately that are using 4K, and that just eats away at your hard
Yeah.
drive space. So even though I have 2 terabytes, my computer was having issues. And so I bought a Samsung hard drive, 4 terabytes, that is pretty incredible. I'm trying to pull it out. Sorry, give me just a second. It's very tiny. You
How
probably
much is a
can't see
4
me.
terab? Oh my gosh.
It's only like $300, maybe $250. Yeah. So
It's
I
so
have,
much storage and it's so
yeah,
small.
and it's a SSD.
So
So I have,
fast.
yeah, it's super fast, and I've just been putting all of my video files on this external hard drive, and like I don't see any performance change on my computer. In fact, I would say it's actually better because it's not taking up my computer's hard drive.
Right.
So, because I'm now carrying around this hard drive that using quite frequently, I bought one of those little pockets that, let me see if I can lift my laptop without causing problems. There's a little pocket that is
Yeah.
stuck to the back of my computer, and I can just slide the hard drive into the pocket on my computer and then plug I have a little tiny cord that plugs in. So if I'm walking around the house or going to the coffee shop, it's not like I have this hard drive dangling off my computer now that's super annoying. So I have loved having that. Um, it's made a huge difference in my workflow especially when I'm doing videos. So I'll
That's
include
awesome.
links to that in the show notes. Yep.
Do you do any iCloud stuff? Like, do you find that you store any major files on iCloud?
I do not. I do everything through Dropbox,
Okay.
which might be better or worse. I don't know. Um, but I was trying to think. The only time that I'm really using iCloud is if I have something on my iPad that I'm trying to transfer over.
Okay.
But for the most part, I just defer to Dropbox. I mean, I wonder if it would be cheaper if I used iCloud or more seamless. The thing that I do like about Dropbox is if I have a file on my computer and somebody asks me for something, I can basically just give them a direct link to that file. I don't have to move
Yeah.
it around or put it. And I mean, I guess you could maybe do that with iCloud.
It's not as easy. Like, it's not meant for it, but
Yeah.
I do like the syncing part. I've got video files on iCloud, but they're only
Mm,
1080p. So
mhm.
so I just
Yep.
kind of offload what I'm not using, and then
Yep.
with the way iCloud works, you can kind of like they can be pre-warmed almost, where you could just access the files.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, so the other thing that I really like, I have all of my files in Dropbox. Just I want that constant backup, and it's really nice if I've been on the go and I'm on my phone and I want to check a file really quick, and it's like I have access to everything.
Yeah.
So I've even changed my computer's default downloads folder to a Dropbox downloads folder so that all
Oh
that
wow.
stuff too. Yeah.
What does Dropbox charge a month? How much storage you got?
It's $10 for I don't know how many terabytes. Maybe 4 terabytes.
Oh, that's good. I think Apple is charging like I think they were like $20 a month for the family plan for like 2
Mm.
terabytes.
Let me see, Dropbox plan. So the other thing that I have all in Dropbox is, um, I have all these different resource files that I've collected over the years, whether that's stock. Let's see. Okay, so you can I guess I might have grandfathered into a previous plan because this says there's 2 terabytes of storage for $10. I'm pretty sure I have more than that.
Mm,
Um, because and I say that because I have a 2 terabyte hard drive on my computer, and I have probably more files than that on Dropbox. So I have, like, all the fonts and stock photography and template files and all these other resource files that I've collected over the years for design work on Dropbox, and I'm not syncing all of that. I used to sync it all, but I'm not using all of it actively, and so I just decided I'm not gonna sync that. I'll just pull down what I need as I need it. So it's I guess, a hack in terms of extending your hard drive, having access to those files, but uh, being able to maintain a lot of those in the cloud. So,
I just found a setting very similar to that um, in iCloud, and it said like store everything on iCloud,
mm, interesting.
and it's like literally like they only keep recent files on your machine, and then everything else gets offloaded to
Huh.
iCloud. That's pretty cool.
We have had an issue lately where our router keeps alerting Henry. You have too many connections. You're using too much bandwidth, and he like
Jeez.
gets pinged constantly. And we've about pinpointed it to my computer. And right now we're kind of running an experiment because I think it's related to Backblaze. So I
Oh,
had Backblaze constantly backing up my computer. So I've turned it off so it'll only run at night. And then I also have Backblaze backing up my NAS drive. But that shouldn't be running all the time because I'm not like constantly moving files throughout the day. But that might be something to consider. Actually, I might want to even pause Dropbox for a little while. But if I'm backing up all my files with Dropbox and Backblaze, then that would contribute to excessive bandwidth.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. And now I don't know about connections. I mean, I would assume it's only one connection there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. We've been trying to pinpoint that.
Figure that out.
Yeah.
Like router modem stuff is the worst because you just feel like, I don't know, I plugged the dang thing in and everything else should work, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and they're also limited in what information they give you. So,
Yeah.
like, you don't always know what device it is, what program is causing the problem, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
You got a plug?
yeah, I will plug my YouTube channel. I haven't posted a video probably in a month or so, but trying to be more intentional about it. So the last video I had was on the Build 12 project and kind of the status of that. So I want to do more of that, provide kind of more incremental updates to the things that I'm building. So you can check that out at youtube.com/selfteachme.
Sweet. Good episode.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks, everybody. Emilite, I'm sorry I didn't say anything to you. You posted a comment like 45 minutes ago. Oh, I need to close it out. Let me close out the episode. If you are listening in your podcatcher of choice, please leave a rating and review. It helps other people find the show and helps us get great guests and sponsors. But for now, that's all we got. When I've forgotten the outro before, I just pulled from a different episode.
Yeah.
Copy paste. We had Josh on. Did you look at Josh's website?
His whimsical stuff?
Yes. So Josh Komu was on the podcast last week, and he is working on his latest education course, all about whimsical animations. And so he has, I think it's whimsical.joshkomu.com or something like that. We'll find the link and stick it in the chat. But I was digging through some of it, and it is incredible just the amount of detail that he's put into this landing page. So at the top right, there's a tool bar that you can use. Like you can click on, I think the erase tool, and then you can erase certain uh, elements on the page. But then you can, there's also an Easter egg where you can maybe use the magic wand tool and click on whatever's in the center of the page, and it turns into a synthesizer. And you can do things
Oh
like
my God.
pull the screws off the nameplate on the top left of the synthesizer, and there's a waveform underneath. Like, it's so one of those things you just want to play with. It's amazing.
Dude, he puts so much time into stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, and just in talking to him, he was like, I have to do things like this. He's like, I know it's overkill. I know probably, 75% of the people that come to the site will never know about these things, but it keeps me engaged and it allows me to have fun with what I'm building. And with
Yeah.
that, I totally resonate with.
Sure. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I'm just cranking out content and it feels like just
Yeah. Well, and I've even found, a lot of the websites and applications that I'm building, I need to find something to push myself and learn something new. Otherwise, it all just feels like old hat and monotony and like I'm doing a job. So,
yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. We will catch you next week. I was going to see if I could tease next week who we have. So we have Tessa coming on the show next week. It'll be a good show.
All right.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
See you, chat.